President Trump is postponing tariffs for nearly 1 month on some products from Mexico and Canada, as we've been reporting. And this applies to products under the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, which was the successor to NAFTA. 38% of all imports from Canada were covered by that pact. That's according to a White House official. But Canada is not backing down, and Americans could see the impact on their monthly power bills soon. Let's bring in Ed O'Keefe now. He's following the latest for us from Toronto. Ed, what Canadian products specifically are temporarily exempt from these tariffs, and what was left off that list?
Yeah, well, essentially, Errol, it's anything that's not covered by the USMCA, and it was interesting to see a top Canadian finance official this morning on the news here in Canada sort of saying, look, there would be more exempt if companies who do export into the United States or Mexico actually registered with the trade agreement to get those exemptions. So it could very well affect all sorts of different industries. We know, for example, that the auto industry, especially the auto parts and the vehicles made here, are really the biggest exemption because they had already been announced as one. We're waiting to see through the rest of today what exactly else could conceivably be exempt. But remember, everything from lumber to fertilizer sent to America's farms to lawn equipment that people may be purchasing this spring as they begin their cleanup from the winter, to produce, blueberries, tomatoes, lettuce, and yes, maple syrup. All of that, in one way or another, comes across the border and was in line to see a price increase potentially because of these tariffs.
And you've been covering the conversation around these tariffs for weeks. You've been there in Canada for a couple of days. It's remarkable for me to see the Canadian spirit and attitude as part of this. But from your perspective, how is the conversation about retaliatory Canadian tariffs against the U.S. changing as the news has developed?
Well, they're standing firm. Here in Ontario, where about 40% of the country lives, the economic center of the country, the premier, Doug Ford, essentially the governor of Ontario, has said that he is going forward with tariffs on the electricity that you mentioned goes to Minnesota, Michigan, and New York. Quebec is another big provider of it, but Ontario specifically saying a 25% tariff going into effect on Monday to those three states for their electricity if Trump doesn't stop the tariff war permanently. We talked to him a little bit about that yesterday.
That's the last thing I want to do. It's the last thing. But he has to understand that he can't attack our country economically and expect us to roll over.
And to the American homeowner in Minnesota or New York or somewhere else that gets its power from electricity,
yes,
they're going to see the electric bill in a month and they're going to realize, whoa,
yes,
a lot more expensive than it was.
That's correct.
So that gives you a sense, Errol, of sort of how upset people are. And Ford, it was notable saying, sorry, but if you have any problems with this, don't call me. Call the president, call your governor, call your members of Congress, because they're the ones that need to know that this has to stop.
Yeah, don't call the dancing queen, though. Ed O'Keefe in a busy location in Toronto. We appreciate the live report, Ed. Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend.